Hi, I hope everybody's doing okay. This is just a video where we're just gonna look at some of the basic functionalities of Excel. I've got a book opened up with me, and there's a basic structure to it. Obviously, there are certain tabs here that have certain functionalities that come in very handy, and we're going to basically set up a very simple example and see if we could use some of these functionalities. So let us go ahead and see what it looks like. We obviously have a spreadsheet right in front of us. We can see different columns, and then there are different rows to our left hand side, and each cell that we see in front of us can actually be referenced through a certain mechanism. And you could see with what is highlighted that you could call this specific cell a cell B3 based on what column and row it is, right? So that's how we could basically access certain cells and the values in them. So let's take a simple example where we could define a variable. Let's just say that variable is cups of coffee, and we could always double click here to see if this fits in nicely, and then we could just say 2 3 1 5 2 3. Maybe these are the number of cups of coffee you've had on a particular day, and then this is another day, and then that is another day, and then you just list them down in a sequence. You could always select them up, centralize them, make sure they're right in the middle of the cell, and that's just some basic things you could do to make your data look decent. You could always go ahead and put a borders to your data. That just gives a nice representation of the data. Obviously, you could drag these from right here to set up different sizes of the rows as well as columns, and well, the goal is to make your data look presentable. Uh, well, that being said, you could always select this data. The way I do it is I could just select the first cell and then hold the shift key and select the last cell. So that allows me to select all of my data in this particular manner. Another way to select all of your data in a column could be to just click the top of the column. That would select everything in that column. But for now, if I just make a selection of what I've got here, the numeric data, one of the things that I could see is that Excel will give me right away some basic metrics such as the sum of these values, count, and then average as well. Okay, but what we really want to do in this particular video is set up a way to calculate this sum through a formula. The way to do it is by setting up an equals to operator, and then we could use something like functionality, which is formula, that is sum, and then we basically open brackets. As you saw, I double clicked on what the Excel proposed to me. I could always just type in the entire thing and open the bracket manually, and that's just one of the ways to do it. uh, the syntax here shows that you type in a numbers, then put in a comma, type in another number, and so on. But we want this to be generalized or functionalized in a way that this is taken automatically for this particular cell, irrespective of what the value is in it. So we choose one particular cell, put a comma, choose the next cell, put a comma, and do this for all of the cells that are there for us. Well, that's one way, and then we close the brackets and press enter, and we get what we look for. That is the total value. Okay, so that's okay and that's fine, but there's also another way to make this selection reasonable, and that is to select the first value right here, hold the shift key, and click on the last cell in that column, and that way all of it gets selected. But notice now, instead of commas, we have a colon, the two dots here in between, specifying that we have selected the data from B4 B4 all the way till B9. So that's also another way, and then we could close the brackets and hit enter, and then we could arrive at the same answer, sum 16, right? So that's just the use of the formula sum. Similarly, there are other formulas that we could use. For example, we could use something called count. So again, we could count how many entries do we have, right? So if we recorded cups of coffees on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and we don't want to manually count this, and we just want to see how many days we recorded our data for, we could always use count like this, from B4 to B9, hit enter, and then we could arrive at our number of days that we recorded our data for. That was for 6 days. Okay, so that's just some of the ways we could use these formulas to basically make our lives simple and do some calculations.